Welcome to the latest Motley Fool scoreboard. I'm on in Chalk Bloom. We've got longtime fools Carl Teal and Keith Spites giving a 1 to 10 rating to a Moneyball rec. It's Summit Therapeutics, ticker symbol SMMT. We'll rate the strength of Summit's business first, including factors like industry and competition. 10 is invincible, a 1 is hopeless. These are a bit rough. Keith, you're at a 4. Carl, you're at a 3.
Yeah, Summit is synonymous with Ivanescamab, which is a bispecific antibody that acts as a PD-1 drug. So think of like Keytruda, and a VEGF drug. So think of like Avastin. And the idea is that the whole is greater than the sum of the parts, that these two act in a way the two drugs wouldn't separately. And that may be true, but it's kind of unproven. The stock went to the moon when Ivanescamab just thrashed Keytruda on progression-free survival in a study in non-small cell lung cancer, but it is yet to show a significant effect in improving overall survival, and they hope to get approval on the PFS data alone. So its eggs are all in the its eggs are all in this basket, and while it is out in front, other drugs are being developed by BioNTech, Bristol Myers, Merck, Pfizer, and others. This could work out and be an incredible win, but they're a 3 for me right now.
Yeah, Carl and I are essentially on the same wavelength here. I will say, though, my score would have been higher than a 4 before the disappointing overall survival results that Summit reported in May from a phase 3 study that was evaluating Ivanescamab in combination with chemo as a treatment for non-small cell lung cancer.
For management, a 10 is Warren Buffett, a 1 is Homer Simpson. Keith, you're at a 7. Carl, you're at a 5.
Yeah, so I know we want to move quickly, but Bob Duggan is just an incredible character. With no scientific background and a business background that started in needlepoint and baked goods. He is he's a mega donor to Scientology. He's an interesting guy, and you cannot argue with his success. His past companies include Computer Motion, which he sold to Intuitive Surgical, Pharmacyclics, which was sold to AbbVie for $21 billion. He sold his Paradise Bakery to Panera. But Summit had essentially failed in its mission when the company did a 180-degree pivot and in-licensed Ivanescamab back in December of 2022. And it looked like another brilliant move. Maybe it is. And it was made possible only by the fact that Duggan, who, at this point is worth like $15 billion, personally fronted the $500 million upfront. So in the movie version, he wins again. But I'm not so sure it works out for investors who get in right now. So I'd give them a 10 for fascination, but I'll give them a 5 just to reflect that they're walking a tightrope.
Yeah, I went with a 7, mainly because the stock has just absolutely been a huge winner under the leadership of the two co-CEOs that Carl mentioned. On the other hand, Summit is a one-trick pony. Everything is riding on this one drug. Management could ultimately look like Homer Simpson if the drug doesn't win regulatory approval and achieve commercial success.
For financials, a 10 is a fortress, a 1 is yikes. Back down to the low scores. Keith, you're at a 3. Carl, you're at a 2.
Well, this is a tough one to answer for some of the reasons we just talked about. They have less than $300 million in cash. They have a high burn rate, and the company is actually in pretty dire straits. Their last 10Q says cash is, quote, not sufficient to fund the company's planned operations for a period of at least 1 year. That's going concern talk. Now, investors might feel like there's a hidden balance sheet in Duggan's personal wealth. And he has saved their bacon before, but you can't count on that, and that's the reason for the 2.
Yeah, we're on the same wavelength again. My score would be higher if I compared Summit only to other clinical stage biotech companies, but that's not what we do here on the scoreboard, and so it's getting a low score.
All right, Keith, let's move on to valuation. How well will Summit's stock do over the next 5 years? How safe is it? 10's a sure thing. 1's a lottery ticket.
Okay, this one is just rolling the dice. Summit could easily be a 15% plus gainer, or it could be less than 0%. Everything hinges on winning approval for Ivanescamab, and that approval depends on demonstrating a statistically significant overall survival benefit. And I don't know what's going to happen there, so I'm going to split the difference between the two extremes, go with a return of 5% to 10%, safety score of 5.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with Keith in theory, but I'll go ahead and make a call and just say less than 0%, and a safety score of 2. And I'm basing that on the fact that the company still has a $14 billion valuation right now. So Ivanescamab not only has to work, but it probably has to prove better than a slew of potential competitors coming up from behind. And it could also see pressure from oncologists simply combining drugs like Keytruda, which will soon be a biosimilar, and VEGF drugs like Avastin, which is already available as a biosimilar. So that makes it a little bit tough.
Thank you to both Carl and to Keith. They've given Summit Therapeutics a very low overall score of 3.7 out of 10. Just keep it moving. Look out for a new scoreboard every market day at 7 p.m. Eastern. Next up is something good, I promise. Till then, Fool on.
Carl knows a lot about Summit Therapeutics. I'll just say, I concur.